sold my car, I sold all the little possessions that I had, and just was going to move to Ethiopia. Didn't know the language, didn't know the culture really, and was going to figure it out. Before I moved to Ethiopia, before we got married, I had taught myself the language, Amharic, which is Ethiopia's national language. Learned how to read the script. Amharic has its own script. It's the only real African script that exists in the world. So I taught myself how to read, taught myself how to speak basic Amharic, so that knowing that when I moved to the country that I would have to communicate with people somewhat on their level. I think it's very important that when we as Americans especially go to foreign countries, that we attempt to learn the language, attempt to engage with the culture, because a lot of times when people see Americans, they just think that we don't care about learning other cultures. Every place we go in the world, we expect everyone to speak English. And that's not really, it doesn't really make us look good as Americans when you go to places and it's like, why aren't you speaking English? Because English is not the first language in this country. Why are we not speaking the language of the country that we're going to visit? So I would behoove you or encourage you to learn other languages, learn other cultures. It's very important because it helps you understand how, in the end of the day, we're all human and we're all connected. So learned the language, got married, moved to Ethiopia. While I was in Ethiopia, I did a lot of work with street children. There's a large homeless population in Ethiopia, and there's a large homeless children population, especially in the city, in Addis Ababa, the capital city. So I used to do a lot of projects with the Children's Village Project. It was a non-NGO. We were all private funding, where we would get funding from people that we knew outside of the country as well as inside of the country, so that we could provide some of these street kids with the opportunity to go to school. So we would find the money to pay for their school clothes, their school uniforms, as well as their school tuition. And when they weren't in school, they could come to the village and they'd at least get one hot meal a day, because they were living on the street, so there was no guarantee that they would actually have anything to eat if they didn't come to the village. And we used to do a lot of art programs with them to encourage them to express themselves and also teach them how to be more self-sufficient. Begging is an industry. Begging is an industry in Ethiopia, so it's very important that you encourage people to do things outside of that. So work with the village. I also opened one of the first international dance studios. I produced reggae shows. I produced other shows, taught many, many dance classes in Ethiopia, and performed in several shows as well. Then I decided to move back to America after T-Bone was born, and while I was back in the States, I was already developing this style of movement called Ethio-Modern dance, which incorporated Ethiopian culture into my contemporary dance process. I myself am a modern dancer. I'm a contemporary dancer. I come from hip-hop culture, but everything I do is definitely urban contemporary. So incorporating Ethiopian culture into what I do, I decided to go to Ireland to do my master's in ethnochoreology, which is essentially like dance anthropology, looking at dance and its cultural relations.